Hey guys, so today I want to talk to you about why I believe in God. If you don't believe in God though, I will also give questions that you can ask yourself, or questions that maybe you've never thought of if you're exploring or you're searching, or I don't know. So here we go. 5 reasons why I believe in God. Or if you don't believe in God, 5 questions you can ask yourself to help think about where you are in your spiritual journey. Reason number 1, truth. So what is truth? Well, the definition we usually go by is if a statement is true, it'll match up with reality. If I say my phone is blue and you see it and it's in fact blue, then that's true. If I say Gabby just farted right now and everyone smells it, then we know it's true. And it is very true. Now that type of truth is usually known as objective truth, or fact, or absolute truth. There's another type of truth which is subjective, or relative, or opinionated truth. Now, I would say that people usually approach the world with the objective definition of truth. If something doesn't match up with reality, then they don't think that it's true. But when it comes to moral values or religion, or whether God exists or not, people tend to lean towards relative side of things. That's a truth that people find on their own. It's up to the person. Like your favorite ice cream flavor. I can say that cookies and cream is the best ice cream ever. And someone can come up to me and say, no, you're wrong, that's not true. Mint chip ice cream is the best ice cream. We could argue over that, or we could realize that favorite ice cream flavor is really up to the person, and there really is no absolute truth about the best ice cream flavor in the world, because that answer is within the subject. When it comes to God, you gotta ask yourself, do you believe the existence of God is objective or relative? And there can be claims that are objective truth that we don't have the answer to. Like the number of hair on my head. I don't know how much hair is on my head. No one knows how much hair is on my head. But there is a certain number. There is a truth about the number that is on my head. Now, I can't be like, well, I believe that there's 5,000 hairs on my head, so there's 5,000 hairs on my head. It doesn't work that way. Because then if we really did count it, that would be pretty amazing if there was 5,000 and I guessed that. But anyways, that's kind of what I'm saying here, is when it comes to God, is he an ice cream flavor, or is he like the hair on my head? If he's real, but people are believing that he's not real, that doesn't change the fact that he's real. If he's real and that's a fact, then what we believe about it doesn't change the fact. One of my favorite metaphors or visualizations to help explain this is the blindfolded men and the elephants. So there's this guy, he takes 9 men, blindfolds them, and surrounds them around an elephant. They don't know it's an elephant. He has them each touching a different part of the elephant. So one guy is touching the trunk, one guy is touching the tail, one guy is touching one of the legs, one guy is petting one of the ears. And he asks them to tell him what they're touching. And one guy's like, oh, this is definitely a palm tree. I feel the trunk, I feel, yep, this is definitely a palm tree. Another guy's on the tail, and he's petting it, and he's like, I think it's a dead snake. It feels like a dead snake to me. I think it's a dead snake. The person who's not blindfolded can obviously see that it's an elephant. Just because the blindfolded men around the elephant are believing it to be something different based on what they feel doesn't change the fact that it's an elephant. So that's the first point in why I believe in God, is what I believe about truth. I believe there is an objective truth about whether God exists. It's either true or false. We don't get to decide that. That's beyond us. Now, point number 2, the existence of good and evil. And the question that I want to ask you is, where do you think our ideas of wrong and right come from? I'm using this point right after the truth point because it's kind of similar, is in there's 2 different views of morality. There's the objective and the subjective. Different cultures and different religions have different practices when it comes to morals and rules, but we all kind of have the same basic knowledge of good and evil. This knowledge or idea of good and evil, that there is a right and wrong, would have to come from somewhere outside of us, somewhere greater than us, or God. And here's why. If there was no God, you can't say something is wrong or right, because without God, or without something outside of us deciding good and evil, then you just have someone's point of view. And no one's person's point of view is more valid than the other person's point of view, because, we're all human. We're all imperfect. We're all broken. No one comes into this world automatically better than someone else. When you have a view of morality that's subjective, which is where people decide their own morality, kind of like when I talked about truth, how people can decide their own truth, the subjective view of morality would be people deciding their own view of morality. So if you take Hitler, for example, and you're looking at him and what he did through a subjective point of view of morality, and in Hitler's mind he was doing what was right because he thought that getting rid of the Jewish population was actually a good thing, then you can't say that he was wrong in doing it. But if you're looking at it through an objective view of morality, where morality is outside of us, where there's something outside of us that says killing is wrong, then when you look at his actions, then yeah, you can say he was wrong in doing that. So subjective view of morality is like the ice cream flavors, where it's within the person. So the person decides what's wrong and right for them. But if that's the case, then you can't really say anyone is wrong, because what's right for me might be wrong for another person. Some people like chocolate, some people like vanilla. One person might view lying as completely wrong. One person might like to lie to get what they want. But those people can't say each other is wrong for liking what they like. If you're viewing it subjectively, this person has no right to say this person is wrong, even though, lying is essentially wrong. Objective morality is there's something outside of us that kind of predetermines what's good and evil. It's where the base, that common knowledge of good and evil comes from, is this outside thing, something greater than us that decides what is wrong and right. And I know in our culture nowadays, it seems like people try to mix the two. They try to mix the subjective with objective, where people are like, no, people can decide what's right for themselves as long as they're good towards others, as long as they respect others. But, that's kind of like saying, oh yeah, like people can decide what flavor is best for them, it's what they're tasting, what they like, as long as it's not chocolate mint chip or cookies and cream. But then that's contradictory. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It's either one or the other. So it's deciding what you believe about morality. Do you believe that it is within ourselves? But then if you believe that you decide your own morality, you can't say that your neighbor is wrong for what they do, no matter what it is, no matter how bad you think it is. You can't say they're wrong, because that's going to be their opinion, their version of morality. But if you think that good and evil, that knowledge is determined by something outside of us, then you have an objective view of morality. I got to think about where that comes from. Like, where does it come from? Who decides that? And for me too, who's going to answer to all the injustice in the world? I believe that morality is outside of us, and there is good and evil, and I don't know exactly what the purpose of it is, but I want to believe that there's a higher power that's going to answer to all the injustice. The third reason why I believe in God: design and science. So the question for this one is, where do you think the universe and everything in it came from? Was it all an accident, or was it designed? So some of my footage got deleted, so I'm gonna have to remake some of the parts of this video. So if the scene changes to this, then just bear with me. You know what's going on. Guys, if you really think about it, this world is amazing. The nature, just the biology of it all, even our human bodies, just how down to the very smallest atom, everything kind of has a role and works together. And it just kind of reminds me of this quote that Justin Bieber once said in an interview about how, if you put a bunch of gold and even parts of a watch in a box and shake it up, when you open it, it's not going to be a watch. For it to be a watch, someone's going to have to carefully place each part together so that they're in the place they need to be in order to live up to their function and work. Literally, if the Earth was 1 centimeter away from the sun, we would freeze to death. If it was 1 centimeter closer to the sun, we would all burn to death. It was placed exactly where it needed to be. God's power and glory and eternalness is embodied in nature that we can see and feel and touch and experience. And if you look around, like, how can you just say that everything happened by accident? I love science. I love learning about science. To me, science is just the study of God's design. Some people might say they believe in science, but you can't really believe in science. Believing in science is like believing in math. Like, you can't say math created numbers and you can't say science created the world, because math is just, our study of numbers. That's how we make sense of numbers. And science, to me, is just how we make sense of God's creation. Does that make sense? The complexity of this earth and just how everything goes together, even the fact that us looking out onto a beautiful view and getting pleasure out of that is just enough proof that God does exist. Moving on, reason number 4, spirituality. So the question for this one is, what drives people to seek more out of life? Why do people seek answers? There's something inside of us that all seeks a truth of our purpose and why we're here. C.S. Lewis is one of my favorite authors, and in one of his books, he talks about how if we have an appetite for a certain thing, there's usually something in this world that is there to satisfy it. For example, if, babies have an appetite for food, we know that food exists. Ducklings have an urge to swim. There's a such thing as water. If we find ourselves with the desire that nothing in this world can satisfy, then the most probable explanation is that we were made for a different world. To me, that longing is a longing for God. So we all kind of have a spiritual side to us. Some people deny it more than others, or they don't, dive into that side as much as others. But a lot of us do. A lot of us have questions that we desire answers for. Now, there's a phrase that's always tossed around in the church or, anywhere, and it's that God-shaped hole. So basically, kind of like everyone kind of has a God-shaped hole in their life, and people are constantly trying to fill it, maybe with relationships, having kids, success in jobs, with unhealthy habits, and they're trying to fill this hole and feel complete and feel happy and content. But ultimately, nothing truly completely fits the mold. So yeah, ask yourself, what is it in us that drives people to seek more answers? Or even, why do we have a spiritual side to us? My last and final point, reason number 5, is personal experience. The question for you is, how has your personal experiences affected your beliefs? Through my personal experience, through prayers that I've seen answered, through just changes of my own heart that I've seen, just looking back on my life, there's just no way that I could ever say that there is no God. Don't get me wrong, I've had doubts. Believe me, I've had doubts. And doubt isn't a bad thing. Doubt is an opportunity for you to grow your faith. I was a very different person 8 years ago, and who I am now is definitely a work of God, because I'm completely different. I don't know what your personal experience is. I don't know what you believe. I don't know if you're searching, or maybe you disagree with everything that I believe, which is fine. I know talking about religion and God is kind of like walking on eggshells in today's society, but this is something I really believe, and I just wanted to tell people why. Yeah, I really just wanted to make this video to explain why I believe in God, and if you believe in God, then hopefully I've inspired you to kind of answer that question for yourself too. But there are a lot of religions and cultures out there that do believe in God and have a God. I believe in the God of the Bible, Christian. I'm Christian, so I believe in the Christian God. And so why do I believe in the Christian God as opposed to other gods? And that's the question I want to tackle in the next video, is why the God of the Bible? So thank you for listening. I really hope you got something out of this. God bless you. Have an awesome day.